Hi, everybody. So glad to have you here with us. I'm Dr. Margot Jacot. I am your mental health business mentor. This podcast is for people who are looking to grow, build their practice, make it be the practice of their dreams. So the guests that we have are here to help us do just that. Let me tell you about today's guest. Amy Hager leads sales strategy, partnerships, and community at Joyful Business Revolution. I love that. Bringing a deeply relational, clarity-driven approach to growth. A marketer and community builder at heart, Amy works closely with founders and leadership teams to translate strategic messaging into aligned action, supporting decision-making, momentum, and sustainable revenue without pressure or performative tactics. This is just right up the alley of every practice owner I've ever known. As lead coach inside the Joy Fueled program, Amy partners with clients over time as their businesses and messages continue to evolve. She's known for her ability to create trust, ask the right questions at the right moment, and help leaders move forward with confidence rather than overwhelm. Oh my gosh, we need to have more of a conversation. Welcome, Amy Hager. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited and I can't wait to just dive into this conversation with you because it's so aligned. And I felt like that right away when I connected with your team and everything along those lines. So, yeah, let's go for it.
Let's go for it. I love it. And I'm in the Chicago area. You are joining us from Virginia, which I don't know about you, but it's 1 degree here today. It's a little bit cold. So
It's
hopefully
not
it's a
that
little
cold
warmer.
here.
Okay, good, good. I'm glad. So, Amy, tell us a bit about your business, about Joyful Business Revolution and the Joy Fueled program. Oh,
Yeah, thank you
wonderful.
for asking. Yeah, so Joyful Business Revolution has been around for a little over 13 years now. We did originally have a name of M. Shannon Hernandez, who is our founder. So if any of y'all want to search her up on either LinkedIn or Facebook, she's really, really great to follow with a lot of really good insights. But we realized we couldn't continue on with her founder name as the name of the business. We know we wanted it to be Joyful Business something because really joy is the foundation of how we really work with all of our clients, whether it's messaging, a marketing strategy, or working on scalability. And to be honest, we were really stuck on that third word for a really, really long time. And then we met together and we were walking a park and we were driving back from this park together and there was a detour. And on the detour, it took us down Revolution Road. And I was like, I don't know, I'm just feeling like this is a sign. Like Revolution was one of our top three. And so we really wanted to go with something that is powerful, that we're really changing the minds of how people look at their businesses. And a lot of time we find business owners might be building a prison and not something joyful. And so we really want to beat that drum, that joy drum. And so the Joy Fueled program is going to be a group of founders and business owners who typically work very holistically, who very much so are in tune with their heart and want to build that business that's not only sustainable for them, but sustainable for their customers or their clients and also their team. They know what they're building is something bigger than them, and they know they provide amazing services. And usually, what I find is not everyone has the gift of marketing and messaging. That was my gift, and I'm very thankful of it. And I'm very thankful, Margot, that you have the gift of being a therapist and being able to bring people
Mm.
into community. And so, when we can really blend our gifts and co create together and create something that feels really, really good for you as the business owner, that's really
Mm.
when we see businesses expand. That's when we see clear goals be set that are actually aligned with your heart and not with your brain. And that's where we see
Mm.
true joy come from being an entrepreneur and not the, oh, I have to do this again, or oh, I'm a business owner and it really sucks. We don't want that.
Mm. Oh, that's lovely, Amy. That is really lovely. Can you give us an example of what that might look like? So I don't know if you've worked with other therapy practices or just, I mean, other
Yep.
founders. Because yes, I think all of us folks can relate to those days where it is a slog of
Oh my God.
to-dos and must-dos and the pressure and the stress. And to your point, because we're kind of aligned with whatever's going on in our head, and maybe we've lost our way with our heart.
Yeah, that's so true. We do work with a lot of therapists, but a story that really comes to mind for me right now is actually a chiropractor client of ours. And she's dealt with long COVID, she's dealing with perimenopause. There's all these other things that are throwing curveballs to her in business. And I mean, these are life things that happen. And so we've spent 18 months working with her. And to be honest, I knew her for 3 years prior to that and would not work with her. And it was because she was I call her type A Mandy, marathon Mandy, whatever. And she wouldn't even make the time to listen to her own heart. But it's when she got
Mhm.
sick, she had to get still. And she really started to
Mhm.
listen to her heart after that illness. So I never wish anyone be ill, but this is actually what was the turning point for her as a business owner. And so we've spent 18 months building a new business, and she's serving clients in a much more aligned way. She's getting into root problems and not just whenever they need to come to solve an issue. They really work on the longevity of their health. And she was at one point seeing 12 to 15 clients a week. She sees four now because four is what aligns with her energy. Four is what aligns with what she really wants to do. Now, she's subsidizing some of that income with workshops and speaking engagements and being able to work with the community as a whole instead of just focusing solely on one. So it's been a balance for her. But I think, even when we're working with therapists, which we do a lot, sometimes even in therapy, we get too broad on what we can really, really help. And we have a therapist who's been working through wanting to distinguish what type of trauma she really, really wants to be working on with her clients. And she really wants to be working on long-term trauma, the trauma that has been maybe generational, that's been passed down. So I think what will be the best is for me to start with the therapist that uncovered she
Yeah.
really wanted to work with only long-term trauma.
Longer trauma. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So another really great example of the work that we've done is we had a therapist who was really kind of vague. She was seeing everyone. She was getting really great referrals from her current clients, past clients, friends, things along those lines. But she knew she really wanted to focus on the theme of trauma. And trauma still was a little too vague. And so when we really started to dig down and do some experimenting and really listen to her heart, she really discovered long-term traumas where she really, really thrives and where she really loves to practice. And so talking through generational trauma, talking through trauma from birth, talking through trauma through childhood has been really her forte. But again, it took 9 to 12 months for us to really land there. So I think the other
Mhm.
part that is really important when we're talking about the work that we do and when we're really talking about that next level of business and figuring out maybe what your specialty is or where your focus is or really what lights your joy, it really does take, I'm going to say, a series of experiments, a series of reflection, and a series of someone asking you really good questions to get yourself there because
Mhm.
you can't therapy yourself.
Right, right,
Yeah,
exactly. Like you can only scratch so much of your own back. You can
exactly.
only talk to yourself and work
Yeah.
yourself through things.
Yeah.
Brains need other brains. Humans need other humans,
So
not
true.
just
I mean,
AI.
exactly. And I really think you're nailing something on the head for me. Like, that's why I say we co-create these. Like, I'm not just
Mhm.
saying, here you go, Margot, here's your strategy, your marketing, and your messaging. That's never going to work for you. Like, we need to go through this experience together to kind of co-create that. And I think when you're
Mhm.
at the point in business where you know that you've been getting referrals, but maybe something is starting to feel off. You feel like you've had some success, but there's probably space for more success, but you're not clear exactly what that is. And you know that you want your business to be long term, sustainable, and maybe to even expand, but you're not quite for sure what the first step is to do. I think that's the
Mhm.
perfect time to really dive into the strategy of how you're acquiring clients, how you're talking about your work, and how you're really showing up in that work. And especially as the thought leader and the founder of your business, it really is. It's your heart, and we've got to make sure that we share that.
Exactly. I love that. So, folks, I can relate to this. I'm sure you can too. We all wonder, how are we going to get clients? And boy, we sit down and we think and we strategize. We need to go back to our heart. I love that. So
Yeah.
it sounds like one of the things that you do that my team had talked to you about is you help people with email marketing. I mean, there's so many ways we could come at this conversation.
Right.
And it's got to be heart driven, whatever that is,
Yeah.
hopefully co-created because there's only so much we can know on our own. We need experts, right? I mean, you chip your tooth, you go to the dentist. If you need marketing, you talk to a marketer. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it, right? So one of the things that you do and what you do in your practice or in your business is you do email marketing. You help people with email marketing. Tell me about email marketing and why you think this feels really challenging and, to use your word, overwhelming, can create overwhelm for mental health professionals.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of relationships that we have with email marketing. Some people love the emails they're getting in their inbox. Some people don't love the emails they're getting in their inbox. Some people feel the email is very personal and it's information that you want to keep close to your chest. Others feel like it's something that is as widespread as social media, right? And it's just out there. So I think the one thing about email is it's a very personal relationship. And so to figure out what your relationship is with email is the first step. And then once we've really figured out that relationship, I think the thing that I hear a lot is we want to make sure that the emails we're sending are purposeful. And I do even hear that when we're like using social media to grow our visibility. And, I think the one thing that we have to remember about all of this, social media was created to be social. It was never created to sell businesses. And so if you're showing up and not being social on
Right.
social media, you're not utilizing the tool in the way that it's meant to
Mm,
actually be utilized. So it's not a platform for
mm,
you to just spray and pray. It's definitely a place for you to have a conversation and to be in community with. And so we feel
mm,
when you build an email list, there at least is something about you that person who added their email to your list likes, or they're curious about, or they want to get to know more about. And so when we think about our buyers, I say there's 5 levels to a buyer. One is the person has a problem, but they don't even realize they have a problem. Level 2 is they're acknowledging that there's a problem, but they're not ready to find a solution or a resource. 3 is when they're solution and resource ready, so they start to do research. 4 is
mm,
they have probably found you through their research, but they're not quite for sure if you're the right person for them. So they're getting to know you. It's kind of like dating, right? You got to get to know each other a little bit. And 5 is when they feel aligned with what you stand for what you believe in, for how you practice or how you go about to solve the problem that they now know that they have. And so, really, usually someone coming onto your email list is at that 3 or 4 space. So that is a great
mm,
place for you to shine and to really show what do you deeply believe in? What do you deeply not believe in? Like what's out
mhm,
there that is like you're like that doesn't align with me because that also helps someone get to know you better. And so I really
mm,
think when we think about marketing and messaging, you need to attract as much as you need to repel. And you want to make sure
mm,
that when you're putting your thoughts out there, especially to your email list, you're giving someone to have that opportunity to say, yes, I agree, Margot. Oh my gosh, this is exactly. Are you in my head or in my heart right now? Are you a fly on my wall? Or
mhm,
you want them to say, Margot, I really don't agree with you. And that is okay because then they can go and they can find someone that they're aligned with. We can't, even though we could help everybody because we're really good at what we do, we're not meant to help everybody. So I really think
no.
that email list gives you a chance to build a deeper relationship. It gives you the
Mm,
opportunity to really have conversations, to be in community, and for people to say, yes, I agree with you, and wow, this is super helpful, or no, this isn't for me, and they can leave, right? They simply unsubscribe or whatever it might be. So I
mhm,
really think that when you're looking to leverage a marketing channel in your business, the first place we need to look at is your email and your email list and your relationship with email and really working through that because it really is that more quiet, quaint community where you can actually speak and connect deeply with someone.
I love that. And you're speaking therapist's language, folks, right? Amy is talking about how this is about relationship. We are masters at building relationships. We have to be. So if our email list, if our social media connections aren't relationship building or relationship based, we're
Right.
kind of missing the point. Yeah, I love
Exactly.
that. So, is it best to find one platform, one focal point? And how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so that is usually the very first question that we really like to answer with anyone. And so there actually is a quiz that we have out there. It's called the Content Personality Quiz. And Margot, I can give you the link so that way it can go in the show notes. But if you're listening and you're not
Yep,
available
please.
to that, please Google Content Personality Quiz. It will show up, my friends. And,
Okay.
and take this quiz. And this quiz is going to identify if your content creation personality type is written, live in person, audio, video, or visual. And there are
Mm,
different platforms and different execution with all of those, or implementation with all of those types. And a lot of times, what I find is people try to do all five. And I do not believe you should be
mm,
doing all five. You have a business to run. You can't just focus all your time on marketing. So I'm a very big believer in double down on what your strengths are and let your weaknesses be weaknesses when it comes to marketing and content.
mm,
And so if you can take that quiz, uncover, give yourself 90 days to play with this and to only use that type. And so I'm a
mm,
live in person content personality type. We are doing this interview today, both on Zoom. I can see your face, Margot. I can see you smiling. I can see you agreeing, right? If we were doing this and cameras were off, I guarantee you I would sound very flat. And I know this because I spent a lot of
mm.
years in radio. And the only way I became really good as a radio DJ is I started to invite my friends to the studio when I was on air.
Well, interesting. You
Yeah.
needed, right? Brains need brains, humans
I
need
needed
humans. You
human
needed their
energy. Yeah.
faces.
I needed their
Yes.
faces. I needed their energy. I didn't let them be on air. I was the one getting paid. But really,
Well, yeah.
it was having that other human energy in the room that really lights my live in person content personality type. But if you're a written content
Mm,
personality type, you are the person that probably sends really thoughtful written letters or cards and emails, and that is okay. Double down on that strength. And so when you can really find your content creation strength, utilize that. That is the first step to eliminating the rest of the
mm,
noise and making marketing less overwhelming.
mm. Oh, that's excellent. So, taking this quiz would, and folks, please go do that, and we will have this in the show notes. But take the content personality quiz. To your point, we do try to spray and pray, right?
Hmm.
We put out a blog post, we do some social media, maybe we go to a networking group, right?
Yeah.
All of which can be fine, but there's no, I don't like to use the word strategy. There's no strategy in that,
There's
we
hope.
can't, there's hope, but we're not being focused. We're not really capitalizing on what we're good at.
Yeah,
So what you're saying, it sounds like, Amy, is figure out, find out. There's a quiz, get some data. This is what you're
yeah,
good at. Why don't you focus there? I love
exactly.
that.
100%. You would, if you would have reached out and said, Amy, would you write me an article about marketing? I would have said no, which is hilarious because I did go to school to be a journalist and I used to write newspapers and I never could figure out why was I always missing my deadlines. Like I loved the
Uh-huh.
interview process, hated the writing process and never was good at it. When I took this quiz, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense.
Right?
Like, no, the first person on my team that I always hire is a writer because I am not good at it.
Yep. Right. Well, and I think that's just a good business tenant, which is what is the woman who developed the brand Spanx? Is it Susan Blakely? I always blank on her
Oh,
name.
yeah.
But right, I heard an interview that she did a long, long time ago. And she said the first thing she did when she could afford to do so, because right in the beginning of a business, we're chief cook,
Yeah.
bottle washer, we do everything. She said the
Yeah.
first thing she did was hire somebody who could do the things that she was not strong at doing, which makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Yay, hire somebody if you can. And of course, we have to budget for that.
Right. It's baby
But
steps.
it's baby steps. But what we forget, I think, as therapists, and I certainly hear this from practice owners when I'm doing business consultation with them, is they'll say, I can't afford it. And
Yeah.
so we do sit down and try to work out, well, I hear you. The output, no, mental health margins are skinny. But
Yeah.
how does using those experts, hiring somebody who might be a marketer or virtual assistant, having something that can help really propel you forward, how does that
Right.
move the needle for you in a way that you wouldn't be able to otherwise? So I love that.
Exactly. It's a good question.
So if, for example, I think most therapists don't necessarily like doing marketing in general. I'm sure
Right.
you know that. Not,
Yeah.
and especially email marketing, which is a little bit of our focus today,
Yeah.
because it feels kind of canned. And what do I say? And how do I make an email relational?
Yeah. And so I think that is, I think, where I get to come into this mix is that's really hard to figure out. What is it that you say is the number one question I get asked is what the heck do I say? And
Yeah.
so I really think that having someone who can listen with that messaging ear, help pull the words out of you and really narrow it down so that it is punchy, so it does resonate, so it does represent you and what you really stand for. And I think there's two schools of thought that come with this. There's agencies out there that just kind of write things for people and put it out there, but that's not how I believe it works best. And so I really, like I said, work with that co-creation and I listen in between the lines. And, in a 40-minute conversation, usually those last 10 minutes is where the gold is because we've gotten a few layers deep in that marketing messaging onion, and we've really heard what is deeply on your heart of how you best serve, what you want to be doing, where your focus is. And so I really think that taking the time and honoring yourself, that it does take time to uncover those great one-liners, those great words. So when you introduce yourself to somebody, they're like, huh, I want to know more. Or, huh, what do you mean by that? So we really
Mm,
got to remember when the words come out of our mouth, especially when we're doing marketing, it needs to create a conversation, not a sale. And a
that's
lot
it,
of
folks.
people, yes,
Mhm,
a lot of people think their marketing should be selling for them. There is a selling
mhm,
component to marketing, but marketing is not a sales closer. Marketing
mhm,
is a conversation starter. And so
mm,
we really want to make sure that we're looking at the words that you're using to make sure that they resonate with the most ideal person who's at that level 4.5, ready to be a 5, ready to be your client. They're just making sure that it's aligned. So when you're thinking about maybe nurturing or building those relationships, I think the number one thing is if you're not there yet to hire a marketer or to hire a messaging person to really help you, I want you to think about the most ideal clients that you're working with and what are some of the conversations and themes that you all are talking about. I want you to think
mm.
about when people are your best referrers. I know we all have them. It's the person who's like referred 4 or 5 people to you at this point. Have a coffee with them and say, gosh, thank you so much for sending me whoever it is, right? And be like, what are you telling people? And listen to that person as a referrer to
Mm,
hear what are they saying that maybe you're not saying. And so it takes a
mhm,
little bit of investigation work to figure out what words do you say in your email marketing and when you're really trying to nurture and build that relationship and build that trust between someone who is on your list and someone who is going to be a client. And so I think that
mm,
really taking the time and honoring that it does take time, it does not happen overnight. There's some people that we can work with in about a 2 hour session, but it takes me almost 2 hours to realize we can do this in 2 hours. So it ends up being a
right.
time commitment of 4 that we can really pull those one-liners. So when they walk into a room or they know how to introduce themselves on, let's say, a podcast or something like that. And then there's some that we're not there yet, and it may take a few weeks, and that is okay as well. And so I think just honoring that it takes time, everyone's timeline is different, and that when you can go on that journey, at the end of that journey is so rewarding because you do
Mm,
feel confident, you do feel comfortable in what you're saying, and you can show up differently with your email list. You can show up differently when you're face to face with people. You can show up differently if you're talking on the radio or a podcast. But I think it really is how do we peel away those layers of the onion so that we can get to the real deep root of your messaging? So that is the surface thing that you lead with, and it doesn't take time to get there.
that's beautiful. So, what I'm thinking of as you're saying that, Amy, is when I meet therapists at a networking event, let's say, and I say hello and we chat for a minute and tell me about your practice. And they'll say, well, I'm a LCPC and I serve kids, adolescents, and adults. And I really like to work with people in life transitions and with trauma. And, it's kind of
The
that
list
sort
goes
of
on and
thing.
on. Yeah,
The list goes on, and it doesn't leave me feeling curious. It doesn't leave, to your point, we
right,
need to figure out how to start a conversation. And
right.
so that is really what marketing is about. So if we're at a networking event, the whole point is to start creating relationships, which will take
Right.
time. And we
Right.
do need to figure out how to speak with them. So if someone wanted to do that process with you, Amy, how would they find you? What would they need to do to connect with you? What would that process look like? You said it might be a 2-hour conversation, probably 4 hours in total because you're doing your homework. So
Yep.
how would somebody work with you at
Joyful Business Revolution. Yeah. So to be honest, it's kind of simple. Book time with me. So there is a 20-minute link on our website, joyfulbusinessrevolution.com. And if you take the quiz, you're going to hear from me because I'm going to email you and be like, are you surprised that you're such and such? And some people are like, no, I knew it, but I just didn't listen to it. Or they're like, yes, and now I don't know what do I do with my life.
Oh,
And so you're
right.
yeah, so you're probably going to hear from me if you go and take that quiz. And I think that is the first step for everyone is to really take that quiz. Book that 20 minutes with me. And when I'm having a conversation with somebody, one, I'm trying to decide if we can do this in a quicker session. So I'm going to ask you a lot of clarifying and clarity questions. I'm also trying to decide if you actually are in your heart enough to do this work in a quick session or if we may need a little bit more time, because again, this is not something that we can just whip out of thin air and be like, voila, here
Right.
you go. And
Because it's
so,
personalized. You're not
so
offering
personalized.
somebody a template. It's personalized. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think the other thing too that I can really appreciate is there are some people that can go out and execute or implement instantly, and there's some that need help. And they need that accountability, they need that encouragement, they need that second set of eyes. And so also figuring out what type of, implementer or executor are you? And so a lot of times, to be honest, I'll start with a little tiny piece of homework and see how does that homework go? What clarity do you get from doing this homework? And then we'll have another conversation. And so before we actually even move forward in working together, I want to make sure that we are a right fit, that I feel connected to you as much as you feel connected with me. Or if you're going to be working with
Mhm.
Shannon, my partner in Joy, that you can have that chance to meet with her and see if your heart's aligned too. So I think that,
Mm.
again, for some reason, I was given that gift of helping people find magical messaging that really converts clients into raving
Mm.
fans and some of the best clients that you're ever going to work with. And
Mm.
when we can really take the time to honor that work together, that's where the magic really happens. So it's pretty
Mm.
cool.
I love that. What a lovely thing that you do for people. So, folks, please go check out Joyful Business Revolution. I'm assuming they can just Google that. It'll
Oh,
be
yeah.
you. They
Yes.
can hop on. And
Yeah.
you know what, folks, those of you who are out there still trying to figure out what to name your business, something that communicates exactly what this does. Joyful Business Revolution. Brilliant. I love the name. Well, Amy Hager, thank you so much for taking time here today to be with us. This is wonderful information. Folks, hop on Joyful Business Revolution, take the quiz, contact Amy. She's lovely. I think she can help us all move the needle forward this year. So, Amy, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This has been a great conversation.
It's been lovely. I wish we had more time. Maybe we can have you come back at some point.
There we go.
That would be great. All right. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Always lovely to have you here. We look forward to having you with us next time. Be well.